Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast here with Jessica Bunbun, and this is our preview for Only Murders in the Building, Season 4, Episode 5, titled Adaptation. Well, would you look at that? It is another movie theme title.
And it's a movie that I've seen and that I actually know what it is, which is nice.
This allows me to bring in something that I have always wanted to say.
Mhm.
Get Nick Cage on Only Murders in the Building.
I would die.
I've got the clues, everybody.
Oh
It is
no.
in the tunnels.
Is it
The Constitution is in the tunnels. Okay, see, you know Nick Cage would be great because Nick Cage, he'd be like, Oliver, it's so good to see you, but I'm freaking out now, and he's gonna like trash Oliver's apartment. I don't know if it's ironically or unironically love Nick Cage. This is my favorite title of Only Murders in the Building so far this season.
Because it allows you to do your Nick Cage,
See, this is the thing.
which I appreciate.
I
If you
appreciate.
appreciate it, leave it in the comments. Hashtag Nick Cage.
See, this is the thing. It has to be kind of precious because my Nick Cage, my voice box kind of is like punching me whenever I do it. It's like, why are you doing this to me? But okay, we have a good bit to talk about in this preview when it comes to one, the aftermath of that big Bev Mellon jaw dropper at the
Yep.
end of episode 4, but then also the potential movie production that's going on here and some theories as to maybe where this show is going based on both what we know about this episode, but
Mhm.
then also the trailer that we saw at the very, very start of the season.
But before we get any further into this video, be sure you hit that subscribe button. It's a great way to be able to get our videos on Only Murders. We have them here 3 times a week. Every single Tuesday morning at 9 a.m., you're going to get our review. Later that day, you will get our preview. And then on Wednesdays, you will get our theory videos. So thank you so much to everyone who has hit that subscribe button. It really helps us here at the channel. We're also covering Slow Horses and we're covering The Old Man, which are
Yeah.
two really great thrillers. From coming up, which is one of our favorite shows to cover. And if you haven't seen that and you're looking for just an amazing thriller horror vibe, oh my goodness, this show is so good. Be sure to check that out.
You can also support us further by joining our Patreon. We have a link in the description down below. For $5 a month, you guys can vote on polls to help us figure out what show we're going to cover next there exclusively. And we have exclusive on Patreon coming up, The Penguin, which we're both very, very excited about. So thank you to all our patrons for your support.
Okay, like Matt said, this episode is called Adaptation. And let's get into the synopsis to learn more about what is coming up in this episode. So here it is. The trio face off against a collection of individuals who deceive and manipulate and threaten as a second nature. And then dash a Hollywood cast and crew. So it feels like the cast and crew of the Only Murders in the Building movie are going to be finally at the Arconia and are going to be filming.
I think this is the perfect time to have this happen. It felt like it would have been way too soon if we did it in episode 2 because we got to see the build up. We have to have the time of the new trio sort of shadowing the old trio, but also I didn't want this to happen in like episode 9 or episode 10 because, well, I've been saying for a while, for starters, that I think the person responsible for all of this, whether they were trying to take out Charles or Sazz or, no matter what the motive is somebody who is working on this film in some way. Not the director, not the writers, but like somebody who's lower on the crew who joined it because they tried to take out Charles. It didn't work. And now they have to find another way. So they're getting close to him. But in order for the show to pay that off, in order for that to actually work, we have to get to know these people. And it's hard to do that unless the movie is in the works. So this is finally going to be an opportunity for us to learn a little bit more about some of these various people, why they joined this film, and also what they're going to try to do now.
Yeah, it feels like whoever is the killer has something to do with the movie or has some sort of grudge against the movie or revenge against Charles and doesn't want this movie getting made. Like, we have spent a good amount of time this season, thankfully, on Sazz and losing her. She was a big part of the show for so many seasons. I was kind of worried after last season that spent so much time on the play that we were going to end up in a situation where it was like, oh, this season's just all about the movie, and Sazz was going to kind of get forgotten about or being put into the background. And that hasn't happened. They have spent a good amount of time really paying tribute to losing Sazz and digging into what happened to her. So going into episode 5, kind of at that halfway mark, it seems like a good time to bring in the movie, especially because, like you've said, this is Matt's theory that it is connected to the movie. And I feel like you're right.
Okay, so here's what I think is going on when it comes to Bev in the aftermath of this past episode, because we talked a little bit about this in the review, and Jess had this really good point that, okay, Bev and Sazz may have this long-term history, this relationship. Maybe it was romantic, maybe it was just personal, but Bev had to get the idea to do this movie from somewhere. And it seems like, with how we know movie development works in real life, it takes a while to get things going. And yes, there's no guarantee that they're going to follow any sort of real life strategy here, because they have not in other aspects. But it feels like this movie may have been in development even before everything with Ben Glenroy. So Bev had to have been tipped off from somewhere. The podcast wasn't as big. It makes some element of sense that it was Sazz. And then Bev goes, potentially runs her mouth elsewhere, because, studio heads love to talk.
Yeah.
And then the potential killer or whoever hired the killer may have found out about this and was like, okay, I got to stop this movie from happening. They try to do something. It doesn't happen. The movie is still happening. So they're like, okay, well, now I have to join the movie. But here's where things get a little bit more interesting moving into this episode, because I'm assuming that at the start of episode 5, they're going to have some sort of situation go down with Bev and the trio that's going to diffuse the conflict that's going on there. Bev's going to realize that they're not the enemy, but perhaps most importantly, Bev is going to tell them why she's looking into Sazz's death or why she is there, and that may forge an interesting connection when it comes to the movie.
Yeah, that I think is going to be tied up quite quickly in this episode at the beginning. Like, I don't think they're going to waste any time revealing that there was some sort of relationship with Bev and Sazz, or something that is making it that Bev is there, that she would know about this trampoline park. If Bev was the murderer, I don't think she would know about the trampoline park, and she wouldn't have known that about Sazz. As far as we had known from this past episode, only one person knew about it, and that person was Charles, and Charles didn't tell anybody. So if Sazz decided to tell Bev, if Bev knows about it, it's because Sazz told her.
Yes.
And if Sazz told her, then they have to be close, or closer than we think.
Here's where things become a big problemo for Charles in this situation. Yeah, this is a problemo situation, everybody. So ultimately, they're going to have a conversation with Bev, I feel like. Bev is going to line out, okay, Sazz told me X, Y, and Z. Sazz helped me get this movie off the ground. She made me realize that this was a great idea. And then I told X, Y, or Z. I think this is all going to get Charles's sort of wheels turning in his head when he's going to be like, oh, and then it's kind of interesting that somebody tried to potentially kill me right before we went to Los Angeles to have all of this happen. The timing of this, it can't be a coincidence. It has to be tied to the movie and the life rights.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about it, is it's all about the timing of things. Because with this movie, when they met up with the trio and they were like, oh, we're 3 weeks out to filming, it was recently before that Oliver had said that the play got shut down within a week. Yeah. So they had their big opening, and then because Cliff and Donna had to use all their money for lawyers and did not go to jail, it got shut down within a week. So that means that by the time that Sazz had gone to Charles in episode 5 of season 3, that movie was already going on.
Yeah, things move there's a pretty interesting timeline here that we have to follow, but it's important to remember, of course, what would be the motivation for making this movie happen. I mean, Sazz, it just feels like she has to be a big part of it in that way. Now, Charles has a tendency to get pretty paranoid. I think that is very well established at this point.
As he should. He's been almost killed.
Yeah, I know. This is not me putting on a
More
judgy
than
face
once.
or any mead by Charles. Like, Charles, you have every right to be worried and or terrified. Now, if you go back to the trailer put out before the season,
Hmm.
we saw Melissa McCarthy come on board as his sister.
Right.
And it sounds like they're there because that's a safe house. So what I think is happening is that Charles, in part because of talking to Bev, is going to realize that there is a good chance that the killer is working on the movie to some extent because
And now they're in the building.
yeah, and now they're in the building and now they could be potentially, hunting them down at any given moment. I think he's going to realize in this episode, oh no, being here in the Arconia and staying is a problem. And so eventually I think we're going to see the trio go off to be with Melissa McCarthy for some predetermined amount of time. But the problem that comes along with that, of course, is that in order to actually solve the case, they kind of have to be at the Arconia. They kind of have to be in a flat where they can get some of these clues together because you can't really do much if you're sitting off with Melissa McCarthy somewhere else.
Yeah, that's the thing. I know we're getting a little bit ahead here with the Melissa McCarthy
Yeah.
thing, but it's something that we talked about in the review as well with Paul Rudd coming back and the big cameos and how many guest stars there are
Yeah.
this season, including Melissa McCarthy, who's very funny. And I'm definitely not here like, why is she on this season? Because she's so funny and she's
Yeah.
great. I'm excited to see her. But it's exactly what you said. If they think that the murderer is now in the building because they're connected to the movie and the movie is moved into the building and
Yeah.
they have to leave, then they're not able to really do much from where they are. What are they going to do? Hide out at Melissa McCarthy's house for the rest of this season? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
It just feels like, to me at the very least, this is going to be the episode that starts to concentrate a little bit more on the movie and the people who are working on the movie as possible suspects. Because for these first few episodes, there's been a lot about Budenoff and there's been a lot about the Westy Besties and their connection to everything. And I mean, I still think there are elements of that are going to be important because I think whether it's intentional or not, I think they must know how the killer, or at least the person hired, had access to that apartment. So I think there is more to come from that. It's not like a total distraction, but I think this is the episode that's going to really hone in on some of these people a little bit more directly involved in the movie and what sort of motivations that they might have. And as we said many, many weeks ago, it's hard to believe it would be Bev. It's hard to believe it'd be the brother sisters or anybody with like big financial stakes in this project, because at that point, trying to kill somebody like Charles, it's going to put a significant dent into production and it's going to make it a lot harder for this movie to happen.
Yeah, the fact that they've now brought out two murder boards, one for Charles, one for Sazz, it feels to me like they are both targets. That after hearing what was going on the ham radio and this
Yeah.
kind of warning of like, listen, someone was already poking around Sazz and now
Mhm.
they're dead, Sazz. And if you keep poking around Charles, you're going to be dead too, Charles. So it makes sense that they would have this worry about if it's connected to the Westies or if it's connected to, what's going on with the movie.
I hope we get an answer in this episode, because we are at the spot now where we don't even know who the target is. We don't even know what the
No.
motive is. We have all these different connected groups. Like, it's a fun season, but I think we need to focus things down a little bit more, guys.
Yeah, it feels like the motive has got to be about a secret. Like, it
Yeah.
really, really does. Like, if somebody is working on the movie or has gotten onto the movie to stop the movie, the idea of, obviously killing off Sazz, if she's snooping around, she got too close to the secret, then yeah, that all makes sense. But if Charles also knows the secret, then, Charles has to go at some point too.
We'll see what kind of reveal they have coming up here, but that's what we got leading into episode 5 of Only Murders in the Building, season 4. So if you want to support us further, Nick Cage appreciates it if you hit that
Okay.
subscribe button. No, hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss our reviews every week, Tuesdays at 9 a.m. And then we also have previews on Tuesdays, theory videos on Wednesdays.
Coco Chanel would also appreciate it. She's been here in the video. Hello.
Thank you, Coco Chanel. And if you want to support us further, join our Patreon. Our link is in the description below. For $5 a month, you can help support us there. We also have the Penguin exclusively coming for patrons. Thank you for your support. We'll see you here next time.